from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Our telephone number so you can join tonight's nightly National Town Hall meeting is 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. And some breaking news that we discussed yesterday, a little bit of President Joe Barboso Biden has announced that he's running for president yet again. That's right. Joe Biden has made the announcement, and we've got a little bit of a clip of it. Listen to this.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you've paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what health care decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent.
So that is Joe Barboso Biden, the president of the United States. His re-election campaign was launched via a video. It's a campaign ad. This wasn't an actual thing, but it was the actual video that he put out. And I think it's fascinating to me that he sits there and, you know, he makes the same claims he made in 2016 when he talks about here to defend democracy and blah, 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 blah. And when he says all of these things, to me, it's what's interesting is that this is exactly how he did it in 2016, right? He came out with a video. He waited and waited and waited and waited and waited until it was almost too late and comes out with this video with the Unite the Right protesters, which we now find out are fake, phony, fraudulent Democrats dressed as Republicans, screaming, "The Jews will not replace us," with these fiery torches, and this overly dramatized event that was bogus, right? And there it is. There's Joe Biden's launch of his campaign in 2016. Now, I'm guessing they're going to use January 6th as, you know, every time he says MAGA extremists, or MAGA Republicans, they're going to show images of the most challenging and scary and dark images they can find from January 6th to really make this to be the scariest thing ever. And like, man, if you want an insurrection at the Capitol every single day, vote for Joe Biden. If you want a horrible economy and for the world to not respect you and for the United States to lose all of its global standing, then vote for Biden. And I think that's where we are. And listen, it worked that first time around. Will it work a second time around? I'm not sure. There's a lot of people expressing concern over Biden's age. And I'm not necessarily one of them, honestly. I mean, I think age is whatever. I think he still has plenty of fight in him. No, even though I call him Joe Barboso, and I do think he says a lot of bumbling things, and he's very foolish sometimes. I don't think he's lost that muscle memory of being an astute political person. Now, some of you are going to take exception to what I'm saying and say, no, Rich, there's no way. You're giving him too much credit. No, I don't think I'm giving him too much credit. I saw how he handled, how it was underhanded and it was shady, but I saw how he handled Paul Ryan, or I should say manhandled Paul Ryan, back in the vice presidential debate. And he's still that same guy. Maybe half the energy, maybe not as strong, but he's still that same guy. Now, what's interesting is, even CNN is like weighed in on this. Wolf Blitzer played some file footage of Biden's campaign history and shows a video of a 1972 campaign ad. This is a radio ad where Biden's campaign is suggesting that his opponent back in 1972 was too old to serve. So what people are using against Biden, he used against somebody else back in 1972. And I think it's really rich. It's an excellent juxtaposition, and I want you to listen to this.
CNN's K-File is also digging into President Biden's campaign history. While Biden is now the oldest president in U.S. history, he was once vying to be one of the youngest senators ever. And he took an interesting position on age back then. CNN's Andrew Kaczynski is uncovering the story for us. Andrew, tell us about how Biden campaigned that time around.
Right. So 51 years ago, Joe Biden was a 29-year-old Delaware city councilman. He was so young that when he was elected, he was not even the age that he could be sworn in. He didn't turn 30 until after that election. And he was attacking his opponent, Republican Senator Cale Boggs, over his age. Boggs was 63 at the time. Now, we should note that's 17 years younger than Biden is today. That's more than 20 years younger than Biden would be in his second term if he was reelected, if he runs for reelection. And what's interesting about this is Biden in that campaign, he had some quotes where he said Boggs had lost that old twinkle in his eye was one of his quotes. This approach was so explicit that the local press dubbed it the dear old dad approach to campaigning. Take a look at some of these newspaper ads that the Biden campaign ran during that campaign. You can see that he cited things like the 1948 poll tax. He had ads where he talked about Joseph Stalin and jazz musicians doing heroin. And he hammered home this line to contrast with Boggs, who was a two-term senator and a two-term governor. He used this line, he understands what's happening today. Take a listen to one of the radio ads that his campaign ran, hammering that home.
In Cale Boggs' day, when Stalin ruled, Americans had visions of Russian soldiers in our streets. In Joe Biden's day, Americans have visions of American criminals in our streets. Joe Biden, he understands what's happening today.
So that was then, this is now, and it's going to be interesting to see how Biden handles those age-related questions.
So there's Joe Biden hammering a guy named Cale Boggs. Now, first of all, if you can't beat somebody named Cale Boggs nonetheless, then you're not much of a campaigner. Anyway, that's just my take. But there's a lot going on. We've got Biden and his re-announcement. Of course, we still have the fallout over Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon both being ousted from their respective cable networks. So we're going to take a look at the state of the media with Brent Bozell from the Media Research Council. Plus, we're going to talk about cyber stalking. We're going to get with a cybersecurity expert who's going to talk about how to track people and how that happens and how you could avoid it. Plus, what's going on in the workplace and why are people getting fired to begin with? We're going to talk about that with an expert on that as well. So don't go anywhere. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez here with you and our guest, Brent Bozell, founder and president of the Media Research Center. Brent Bozell, welcome, sir.
Rich, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you're back. Now, I want to pick your brain. There's a lot to talk about. Yesterday, we played a brief clip of audio of my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens. I call her AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she said that Fox News and Tucker Carlson were inciting violence, this, that, and the third. Now, today, she's on to saying that deplatforming works, and she's celebrating Tucker Carlson's exit at Fox News. What say you?
Well, I think that she is really, look, this woman is a socialist by definition, but she's more than that. That's her definition. My definition is that she's a Marxist provocateur in the United States in the body politics. There is nothing that will satisfy. Have you noticed that? Have you ever heard her give a speech saying, "I'm happy"? Have you ever heard her give an address saying, "This is the way the world should be, and I love my country"? She doesn't believe in this. This woman is anti-American. This is riches. It's a phrase I use very, very guardedly. Never before in my career did I accept the usage of the phrase anti-American, but I do believe this crowd is. I do believe these people hate this country, and they want to tear this country down. So for them, ends justify the means. So yeah, they will try every dirty trick, including disparaging people's reputations, at the drop of a hat, should they go against this far left radical socialist agenda that they have. That's AOC.
You know, Brent Bozell, I think you're right. And I just want to add my opinion on that, because I think you're 100% right. And I don't want anybody to misconstrue any of that. It's not that it's they do hate America, but it's not just that they just hate the America that we currently have, the America that America was created to be. And they're trying to recreate this America in their beautiful utopian, even dystopian vision of America. And I think this is the reason why it's never enough and they're never happy, because they feel if we do this and we do that, then we'll get to this happy place. But we don't really ever get there, do we?
No. But, you know, I guess I'm going to go further than that. Look, when George McGovern ran for president in 1972, he was the most left-wing senator ever to run for office, with the exception Roosevelt had a stronger, a more left-wing administration. But he was seen for his time as the most liberal in America running for president. In 1980, he was defeated for office, but I recall very strongly, 2 years after that, he was on the cover of Time magazine on July 4th, standing next to the person who was the furthest on the right in the United States Senate, Jesse Helms. And they were standing side by side, waving American flags. I'm sorry, Rich, I don't see AOC waving an American flag. I've never seen her do that. I don't see her wearing an American lapel, the American flag. I don't see her celebrating July 4th. This is a crowd that think where they're going. The CRT indoctrination campaign of children is meant to educate the next generation of Americans that America is fundamentally flawed, is fundamentally a bad country. This is a country that was built on racism. The 1619 Project then becomes the alternative to the United States. It becomes the alternative to 1776. This is what they want. This is why I believe they're anti-Americans. They don't want a lovely America, not this crowd. And Ted Kennedy, that crowd did. As far left as they were, they loved America. I just don't think she does. I've never heard her say it. Have you ever heard her say, "I love America"? Can you imagine her singing "I love America"?
You know, it's a brilliant point that you point out there, and it's accurate, and it's shameful, honestly, for her and the rest of her squad members to take this position. But that's where they are, and now they're celebrating the success. Now, look, I make some tongue-in-cheek comments. It's part of what I do, but I'm not happy that Don Lemon is without a job. I guess I'm happy that there's movement at CNN, but I don't want to see the guy unemployed. I hope he gets a job at News Nation or somewhere else. And it seems like the one side is just happy to have a political debate, and the other side is happy to relish in the misfortune of another person. What is that rooted in?
Well, no, that's good Christian thinking, and maybe some of us do go overboard in our glee sometimes. But you do that because conservatives were sick and tired of the Don Lemons of the world equating them with fascism, equating them with racism. he called the MAGA people, he called them racist. So he's calling half this country racist and Nazi lovers. And not to mention, and everybody's forgetting how obscene this man could be. How on New Year's Eve, drunkenly, the folks at CNN, I will just leave this phrase because they used it on television, but they were joking about teabagging. Now, I won't go any further than that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, wonderful. If you do, you're disgusted. Well, they were doing that on national television. This is the problem with CNN. The wheels fell off this network many years ago.
Yeah.
Don Lemon was at CNN for 17 years, but let's be frank about this. He was never a success. He was the numbers at CNN are so rich, they're so awful. When they're in the last year, I was looking at some numbers. Fox is down 22%. MSNBC is down 17%. That's from last year when the war started and everybody was watching television. Well, if there's one thing CNN is good at, that's war coverage. And yet, since the war began, CNN's audience is down 61%.
Wow.
It's collapsed. His audience, the audience that he had, been the 25 to 40-year-old demographic, which is the key demographic, he had 75,000 viewers in a nation of 340 million.
Wow.
He ought never to have that show. When he was suspended, the ratings for his show went up 5%.
That's horrible. Oh, I didn't know that. That's really terrible. I feel badly.
Yeah, I mean this man. He didn't have. Remember Katie Couric some years ago? She was the darling of the Today Show in the morning. Just crushed it with the ratings, and they put her on the nightly news, and she tanked like a rock. She wasn't made out for nightly news stuff. Don Lemon wasn't made out for nightly news stuff, but he certainly wasn't made out for morning television. That was a disaster from the get-go. They should never have done that. They should never have given him an anchor slot. He just simply never earned it.
Good old Don Limon. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and get to the Tucker Carlson controversy because, again, it's a similar story but yet very different, and we're going to get your take on that when we come back from the break. I do want to remind everybody who you are. Folks, we're on with Brent Bozell. He's the founder and president of the Media Research Center. You could check them out at mrc.org. And before we leave Don Lemon, do you think that being that during his suspension, his show gains ratings, do you think this helps CNN in their market position? Do you think it matters at all that Don Lemon's gone?
I asked Chris Plant, the talk show host, who came out of CNN, what he thought was going to happen after Eric Lick was named as the new boss of CNN. And was it going to get better? Eric Lick was saying that he wanted to go down the middle and become more newsworthy. And he said, no, it won't change. They're headed for the toilet.
Wow. Well, folks, keep it locked right here. We're on with Brent Bozell, founder and president of the Media Research Center. He's our guest for the next couple of segments, and you don't want to miss what we're going to talk about regarding Tucker Carlson and Biden's announcement. Don't move a muscle. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez on America at Night.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We're on with Brent Bozell, founder and chairman of MRC, the Media Research Center, mrc.org. Brent Bozell, yesterday I think a lot of people were stunned by Suzanne Scott's and Lachlan Murdoch's decision to part ways with Tucker Carlson at the Fox News channel. And, my thinking on this is likely some fallout from their Dominion payout, in addition to just an overall change of direction that we've been seeing, I think, for quite a while at Fox News Channel. But those are just my inclinations. What's your thought on what happened here?
Well, it starts with this, Rich. When the news came to me, whatever time it was, it's like saying, "Do you know where you were when the planes hit?"
Right.
When I got the news, I told my staff we would know within 20 minutes what caused this to happen, because it was such an explosive thing that we would find out that it was some sex scandal or some such thing.
Sure.
The fact that 36 hours later, going into the 48 hours later, we still don't know. To me, that's the shocker, because there's no clear answer as to what happened yesterday. I think all signs point to this coming from the very top, from either Rupert Murdoch or Lachlan. And this is, again, I'm speculating, just like you're speculating. Mm-hmm. My speculation is, if you're anyone underneath Rupert Murdoch, your job is to deliver money to the investors, to the boss, and you don't get rid of the person who generates the most money for your network. My guess is that it went to Murdoch. Murdoch was, for some reason, angry with him. For some reason, maybe felt, a speculation is that he wants to sell the company, and that Murdoch, that Tucker was an anchor around his neck, because people didn't want Tucker to come with the package. There's lots of other speculation going on, but at the end of the day, I really do believe Fox has made a big mistake. Bill O'Reilly was their number one guy, and they suffered when he left, but they came back. But the difference is, Bill O'Reilly wasn't seen as a leader of the conservative movement. Tucker Carlson not only was a leader in the conservative movement, but he was starting to fill Rush Limbaugh's shoes. That's how big he was becoming within the conservative movement. So, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing. Ever since the news broke, I've heard from people everywhere saying, "I'm done with Fox News." So sure. I think this is serious. This is not a good day.
Now, you're a media guy, Brent Bozell. And my initial reaction to this is, it's got to be dollars and cents. It's got to be related to some money somewhere, somehow. And I can't help but think, at what point does, whatever money it is, it has to balance out. And I'm thinking what they're going to lose on revenue, on advertising revenue. I personally think their Fox Nation streaming platform is going to take a really big hit, because he had a very kind of candid program on there. And I think a lot of people signed up because of him. And it seems like that's going to not be in good shape as well. Financially, from a business perspective, yeah, I think a mistake is an understatement, no?
Yeah, and the whole industry is in a state of turmoil. I mentioned that the three networks' audiences are down. The dot-coms are all struggling now. BuzzFeed just went out of business. There's a real problem now in the world of media, where it's becoming far more competitive. The advertising revenue isn't there, especially with the downturn in the economy. So people are having a hard time with the returns that they were getting a couple of years ago. All that points to this being a mistake. You wonder if this was a Murdoch just angry and throwing a history. Look, clearly Tucker Carlson and no one knew that this was happening on Friday, because it didn't. So clearly this decision was made over the weekend, and there's no black and white reason as to why it happened. So that just tells me something snapped in the decision-making process over the weekend, and somebody said, "Off with his head."
Yeah, I find it. A bad idea.
Now they're going to suffer the consequences because it's a terrible idea. And it's going to have such a chilling effect on television. You know, one thing you could say about Tucker was that he was the most original person that Fox had. His show was cutting edge, not from the standpoint of tone, but from the standpoint of subject matter. He introduced so many fresh subjects and topics that were so well researched. You might disagree with him. I disagreed with him completely on his position on Ukraine, and yet he gave a defensible position on Ukraine. He had it well thought through. He made you think this was good television, which is why he was by far number one.
Yeah, great point, and I agree with you on that one. I definitely took exception to his position on Ukraine, but he swayed a lot of people. He swayed a lot of people to think that, and many of them called this program to give me their Tucker talking points. But I just, like I said, I'm left scratching my head where they're the goose that lays the golden eggs, whether it's from a business perspective, from a ratings perspective, from a conservative thought leadership perspective, you name it. I think Carlson was leading the way in all of those areas, and he'd gotten very comfortable in his position, I think, where he was able to make the case for things from cultural issues like, we shouldn't be mutilating children to so many other issues that made a lot of sense. And some suggest that those positions, which weren't new, but that maybe he was doubling down on them and they wanted to get away from that type of cultural commentary. What do you make of that line of thinking?
Well, I think it is very important because there's such a chilling effect going on. The left. Have you ever known a movement to be more intolerant than the far left has become? It's not that your right to speak that's being assaulted. It's your very right to think that's being assaulted. Because when a thought enters your head, the blowback has been so hard. You're not allowed to say anything about transgenderism. God forbid you say anything about homosexuality to begin with. You're not allowed to do those things because even though very bad things are going to befall you, it's going to befall you. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your business. You're going to be thrown out of school. All sorts of things, bad things happen if you go against the narrative. Tucker was very good, and the other guys are very good on Fox, and that they stood up to this. Well, this is going to have a chilling effect. What, Rich, is going to happen now with the Trump campaign? How are they going to handle Donald Trump on this campaign? I don't know what happens. This is going to have such a chilling effect. It is clear that the Murdochs do not like Donald J. Trump. They don't like him one bit. They don't like the fact that Tucker seemed to have mended fences with him. They don't like the fact that Hannity is good friends with him. So what's going to happen now? What are the hosts going to do on this campaign? I mean, this is the Murdoch boys don't want Trump in any way advanced on this network. Well, if Sean Hannity interviews him, it's going to be advancing him. So what's going to happen? Is Sean not going to be allowed to interview him for fear of what might happen to his career?
Absolutely insane what's happening. Last place you thought you'd see that was Fox News, but here we are. Folks, we're on with Brent Bozell, founder and president of the Media Research Center, and we're going to wrap this thing up in a moment with his thoughts on the 2024 campaign, because that's what we've just broached. And Biden made his announcement, so Brent Bozell, stick around. I want to get your quick thoughts on that. Plus, I want to hear about this Mediterranean cruise that I hear about. It sounds like a really, really good trip. Anyway, don't move a muscle. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, I see some of you already calling in. We got calls from South Carolina, calls from Brooklyn, New York, Atlanta, Georgia. Brent Bozell, I want to get your thoughts before we hit the phones on Joe Biden's 2024 announcement. He releases it via video. It's a canned speech where he basically rehashes what he did when he ran in 2020. Trump is bad. Trump is bad. MAGA Republicans are ruining America. Vote for me. What say you?
Well, that's the cards he's got to play. First of all, and he's also doing it again from his basement, and he doesn't do it in front of a live audience. He does it in front of a dead TV set. What's he going to do? Is he going to run on his achievements? He's going to say, vote for me because I'll give you more massive spending and a bigger debt. Vote for me and more massive taxes. Vote for me and we'll do more massive regulations. Vote for me and we'll have an all-out assault on fossil fuels and gas stoves. Vote for me and we'll have inflation even higher than it was, which is the highest in decades. Vote for me and we'll have higher interest rates. I gave you massive price increases. In food, I gave you massive fuel increases. I gave you massive bills everywhere you look. Overseas, vote for me and you'll watch China invade Taiwan, and which, by the way, will trigger an alliance that means we'll have to go to war. Vote for me and watch Iran and Russia and North Korea with their adventurism all over the globe. Vote for me and watch how Saudi Arabia slips further away from the United States and France starts cozying up more with China. Vote for me and you're going to have more transgender, bizarre stuff going on with our grade schools. Vote for me and you're going to have rampant violence in the streets. The mobs are going to be in close control of cities. And oh, by the way, the borders will continue to be overrun with no end in sight, with millions of illegals pouring over. Rich, he can't run on his record. It's the worst record I've ever known. So all he can do is attack extremists. His strategy is the only strategy he's got. Make my opponent more unlikable than me.
Brent Bozell, really well said, well put. I agree with you. You're preaching to the choir here. I'm part of the crowd that says, how on earth does this guy even run? But I realize that my incredulity doesn't stop him from running, and it doesn't stop people from buying hook, line, and sinker what the media is putting out there. And my fear is that people will start to see Biden as a viable candidate. Do you think that's pie in the sky thinking, or do you think there's a chance of that actually happening?
Well, here's a dynamic that I think is going to be different. 4 years ago, there was this general misread of politics with people disparaging for having his basement strategy. It was very, very smart. They hit him. Never get in the way of your opponent when he's self-destructing. Donald Trump was self-destructing. He ran a terrible campaign. Let's be honest about this. And he self-destructed on the campaign.
Well, and not to mention the campaign manager self-destructed during the campaign.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was just an absolute mess. That's not going to repeat itself. I think number one, Donald Trump is much smarter than that. He's going to learn from the mistakes he made. But number two, Joe Biden can't. He now has a record that he has to defend, so he can't stay in the basement visually. What they're going to try to do is make him campaign via television commercials. There's going to be a lot of that videotaping of him and not putting him in front of audiences. And they, believe it or not putting him in front of the media. Even though the media are hook, line, and sinker behind him, there will be that token reporter here or there who's going to go off the reservation and ask him a tough question. And it'll be very tough because this man can't handle any kind of tough question. We know that for a fact.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm so skeptical of what's going to happen here. I can't see, and I just go by the gauge. You know, I go places, I ask questions. When I get my coffee in the morning at a Cuban coffee shop, I always ask, and the guy tells me, "Can you believe that Biden?" This is a guy who doesn't like Trump at all, can't stand Trump. But he tells me, can you believe Biden's running for president again? Like, what are the Democrats thinking? I hear that and I go, that's a good thing. You know, it's a local cop comes in to get coffee. He says the same, and he's not a very political guy, but he says, I can't believe Biden's running again. It's nothing but good for Trump. He's like, maybe we need Trump back. So I think there's a general sentiment where people are like, you know what, maybe we didn't give Trump enough of a chance. And we gave Biden a chance, and boy, are we in bad shape between interest rates, inflation, and whatnot. We're in a horrible place, Brent Bozell.
Yeah, and I think that those people, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to look at this dispassionately. If I were Donald Trump, my announcement would have been a little bit different than his. It would have been very short, sweet, and to the point. It would have been, this was my record from 2016 to 2020. This is how I left the country. This is what's happened since. If you vote for me, if you elect me, you'll have my policies. If you elect him, you'll have his policies. Folks, I'm going to go play golf in Scotland. Let me know on election day whether you want me to do it.
Right. Hold my beer, and it's not a Bud Light. Right. That's a good point. Great strategy. That's why you're the media guy, Brent Bozell. Now, Brent Bozell, being that you're a media guy, tell everybody quickly about this wonderful tour cruise that you guys put together.
Yes, come on our cruise. It's mrccruise.org. We do a cruise every year. That's not COVID. And this year we're going into the Mediterranean. We're leaving on June 22nd, returning July 1st. It's on the Celebrity Liner. We're hitting all sorts of wonderful spots. We have a lot of good speakers, great speakers. We got Jason Chaffetz, Joe Concha is going to be speaking. Charlie Hurt of the Washington Times and Fox News is going to be speaking. Cal Thomas. We have a number of other really good guests that we're going to have. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun with kindred conservatives on the high seas raising hell. How about that?
I love it.
MRCCruise.org.
Check out the website. Now, again, the main website as well, mrc.org. Brent Bozell, thanks for staying up late with us and giving us some insight onto everything that's going on throughout the day.
Anytime, Rich. Take care.
I appreciate it. God bless. All right, folks, your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Let's connect with our buddy Alex. He's in Brooklyn, New York, listening on Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com, WFAS in that part of the country. Alex, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, thanks so much for taking the call now. I want to comment about Tucker Carlson, but before I just quickly wanted to say about Joe Biden running, I think the media backing him up for his second term, which he's running for, shows you how much they really don't give a crap about the willingness of the American people, because they're admitting that the majority of the Americans and even the majority of the Democratic voters do not want him to run in the primary, and they don't want him to be president in 2024, but they're using their Democratic voter base as a tool by saying, hey, we're not afraid that they don't want Joe Biden to be the nominee. If he becomes the nominee, they're still going to vote against President Trump because they don't want the alternative. So they're saying, hey, screw you guys. You don't want Joe Biden, too bad on you. We're setting him up as the nominee of the Democratic Party. Nobody's going to run against him. But then in the general election, you guys are going to vote against President Trump because you hate him, because we brainwashed you people to vote against President Trump, no matter who is on the other side of the ticket. So that I think is really horrible, completely undemocratic, and just despicable to say, hey, we don't give a crap about what you care about, even on their side of the aisle. They're just screwing them over in that manner. But I think about Tucker Carlson. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to say that seems so typical of how Democrats have behaved with this. They preach tolerance, but it's not about tolerance. Alex, give us a call back at at midnight if you can, for Tucker Carlson. We're out of time on this one, and we've got an interview coming up with a cybersecurity expert that's going to tell us about how people are getting tracked and not even knowing about getting tracked. Don't go anywhere. Don't move a muscle. Anyway, Steve in Atlanta, Robert in Charleston, give us a call back. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you. We'll be right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. It's Tuesday night, hour number 2 of the program. You're welcome to join us. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number, 833-482-5337, or you can get me at Rich Valdez on all of the social media platforms. Looking forward to your comments. Now, I want to talk about the Biden administration. The Hill is reporting that they're cracking down on harmful AI practices, artificial intelligence business practices, and federal agencies are now announcing earlier today their intentions to crack down on automated systems that cause harmful business practices, including unlawful and bias discrimination. Now, as that's happening, there's other things happening with respect to technology that's not AI, believe it or not. It seems like everything is AI nowadays. But you've got a St. Louis man who admitted to harassing and cyber stalking women. He's facing new charges. You'd think that, they might have learned the first time, but no, there's more, like a bad infomercial. And you also have now the Cybercrimes Task Force could become a new thing. Like a permanent thing in Missouri. You have a state senator in Missouri that's now saying that they're drafting a bill to bring victims of cyber stalking together with law enforcement to continue to investigate these crimes, because apparently this stuff is on the rise. And I think that's interesting. Now, another article here, different part of the world here. Iowa. An Iowa man has pled guilty to using an Apple AirTag to stalk a woman that he said was his wife. I mean, this stuff is crazy, and I'll give you just a tidbit on this before we bring in our guest. But this Iowa man, he was accused of this. He was arrested and booked into jail at the end of last year, charged with 3 counts of stalking using an unauthorized GPS and electronic surveillance as well. Prosecutors said the woman found the AirTag on top of her car's spare tire in December after she was alerted by her cell phone that she was being tracked. So the West Des Moines Police Department took the AirTag into evidence and then prosecuted the case with their prosecutor there. Then you've got in Texas, the Grapevine Police, they're investigating the case of a woman possibly tracked with an AirTag as well. So interesting stuff that's happening all over the place here. And I want to get to the bottom of this, because I think this electronic surveillance was bad enough when we saw it happening with the FISA warrant and Russiagate and all of that. But now we're talking about regular people not using the power of the government, but just using the power of technology. And Andrew Sternke is an expert on technology and data security. He's founder of DarkBox Security Systems. They're a custom cybersecurity service, and he's with us to help explain all of this. Andrew Sternke, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rich, for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So let's talk about this a little bit here, because I think this is alarming when you do a quick cursory search of what's going on with cyber stalking, and you run into half a dozen stories. Let's talk about the one coming out of Texas, because it seems that the AirTag is a popular tool in stalking women.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the case out of Grapevine, Texas, is just another example of these AirTags being used improperly. But fortunately, since this issue first came out to light around 2021, Apple has put in some security measures that are available to Apple iPhone users, and that's what we're trying to get out, is that there is an ability to stop the AirTags from improperly conducting surveillance on you, and so now what we're trying to do is, educate the general public.
So why don't we start by educating the audience on, Tell us how the AirTag works and how people are using it for cyber stalking.
Yeah, so basically what the AirTag is this little round little device that piggybacks off the Bluetooth network of all the various Apple products in that area. So it doesn't have its own GPS system, but what it's doing is piggybacking off the GPS systems of the iPhones, computers or whatnot in the area, and then based on triangulation, a person can then see exactly where that AirTag is. And unfortunately, because it's not connected to any specific GPS signal, a stalker, for instance, can leave their AirTag like in your vehicle, and using your Bluetooth system from your own phone to specifically pinpoint where you're at.
Now, how easy is it for someone that wants to do this to someone to pull this off? Is it just as simple as putting it on her spare tire and, hey, good luck, and maybe she gets a notification on her phone, maybe she doesn't, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what you just said. So, they can stick it on a spare tire, under their vehicle, within the vehicle, in the wheel well, and it will pick up the signal of that individual's phone. But again, fortunately, there are things to see if you are getting tracked. So if an individual goes into the Find My app feature of their phone, within that, they can go and disable the offline finding. And then what else you could do is that now Apple has installed software that if an unknown AirTag is within your vicinity, then it will actually alert you.
All right. Now, if people want to check out some of the work that you're doing with DarkBox Security, the website is darkboxsecurity.com. Is there another way to get in touch with you, a social media handle or anything like that?
I mean, if they just do, just DarkBox Security on Twitter or Facebook, they can find us that way also.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for being with us and shedding a little bit of light on this, because this is something that I think is a developing story for so many of us that we're hearing this, and it's like, man, this is kind of crazy. Folks, check him out. Andrew Sternke. He's an expert on technology and data security, founder of DarkBox Security Systems. Check them out at darkboxsecurity.com. Andrew Sternke, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, folks, coming up straight ahead, we're going to get to your calls on everything we're discussing, including cyber stalking. Have you ever been stalked? Have you ever been cyber stalked? I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Give us a call, 833-4-VALDEZ. Plus, we're going to talk about this story about this woman who, again, just didn't even know until she got this notification on her phone and said that there was an Apple AirTag traveling with her or on her person. And that's what made her realize, hey, hold on a second. There's something going on here that shouldn't be going on. I'm blown away by this because, it's kind of sci-fi to me. I can't imagine somebody ever doing that to somebody, but it's happening, and it's happened multiple times, and we've seen the stories. So we're going to talk about that as well. Again, if you have a thought on it, give us a call. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
So this crime happens in the historic downtown Grapevine area, and the incident with the AirTag that we were talking about. This woman was driving her car, gets this notification on her iPhone, says that there's an Apple AirTag following her or with her. She did the right thing. She immediately calls the cops to look at what's going on. And again, according to the police there, they say that's how people are identifying women that are vulnerable or on their own, and that's how they're pulling their victims, unfortunately, is looking for the easiest victim. They say to look in the wheel well of the car, in the undercarriage of the car, on the bumper. Just take a look underneath your car. Now, listen, I don't do that regularly, but I recently did because I was looking at some stuff on my rims and whatever. And you go down there, and it's like you don't know what you're looking at. You know, I was looking at my brakes. I was looking at all sorts of things. Last thing I'm looking for is an AirTag. I don't even know what it looks like. I just see pictures of it. It looks like a 50-cent piece with a Apple logo on it. Anyway, I'm looking at a NBC News piece that cites the guest we just had, Andrew Sternke, and he talks about the different options that he mentioned with us, and I think that's important. You've got to go into into your phone to make sure that you're not getting tracked with one of these little things, because ultimately, you never know. Somebody could be on to something here, or on to you. Anyway, let's get to the calls here. We've got a call from Lansing, Michigan on WILF. Let's go to Iris on line 2. Iris, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm really pleased that I got through. I've been wanting to talk to someone because I thought it might garner some support or some ideas as how to get rid of this stalker. But in 2015, I learned a Japanese song on YouTube. I uploaded it to my YouTube channel, and I was thinking, I don't speak Japanese. I mimicked it and figured out the chords. I'm an amateur musician, and so I listened to a few people in Japan sing the song, and this guy who's been stalking me is one of the about 6 people I listened to. I wrote him and asked him for a resource to check my pronunciation, and as it turned out, he lied and said he'd send me the lyrics, and he went and listened to my song and then commented. And this person, fast forward to 2019, I learned that the symptoms on my phone were likely from a keylogger, and when I reactivated a phone, and when I reactivated a phone that I had stopped using, it told me there was an unopened Gmail from Google to me saying someone has accessed your phone, your account through a Mac, which I've never done, and this person is still stalking me to this day on virtually every smartphone I get. I have had to shell out $650 for this landline that I'm talking to you on because of it. I do have a police report on it, but for a long time the police felt like, what would we take a report when he's way over there? What can we do? And I don't know how to get rid of him. I have learned recently there's spyware that they call zero-click spyware that they can purchase on the dark web for cheap that will enable them to do all this stuff for them. A company in town here, I don't know if I can mention their name, but they're on Kreitz Road, and it's a consulting firm, and they couldn't help me, but this guy named Jason there did listen to me and ask me questions. He asked me, do I ever transfer anything from one phone to another? I said, I've never done that. And he said it sounds to him like the guy might be in the data system, but he said, they can get this stuff on the dark web to do all this stuff for them.
Now, let me ask you, Iris, is this someone that's stalking you because they have some sort of romantic interest in you, or is this sheerly like an identity theft type of thing?
No, I don't think it's identity theft because I do believe that by now he would even have my bank account number and all. I don't see any direct losses from which I think would be hard for him to do. I've talked to my bank account, and I've actually created a different account that he knows nothing about, just in case, to move money into it. And I'm not wealthy. This has actually been a terrible expense. I mean, I've gone through so many phones in the past 6 years. He does usually show up on a new phone within the days 2 to 4. Like after you activate a phone, the 2 days later to 4 days later, somewhere in there he shows up, and the phone starts acting a little weird. There are many phones that used to get very, very hot, and the battery would run down really fast. And there are other phones where just something that just suddenly starts working a little differently. There's a little different symptom when it was working perfectly like it should have been the first couple
Iris,
days.
it sounds like you might want to, if you're getting a smartphone, you might want to set up a different email account and not use the same Gmail that you've been using as your Apple ID or whatever your principal email is, so that you can, get rid of that old way, because it looks like they were that keylogger, keystroke tracker, or whatever they were using. They were able to access all of your data that way. That's what I would do. And I would contact the feds too, because electronic surveillance, may be something that they have more of an interest in than your local police department. But yeah, crazy stuff that's going on. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. From Lansing, Michigan, WILF, Iris. Big shout out to everybody out there. Let's continue to Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Robert, you're on with Rich Valdez.
Yes. Hi, Rich.
Hey, Robert. Now, let me ask you something. Are you a stalker?
No, I'm not.
Are you a cyber stalker?
No, I'm not.
Me either. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that actually it's to our advantage as a society to have these new technologies and to have them available to us. Because
especially if you're a stalker. Mm-hmm.
And the child were kidnapped. Okay, the kidnapper might not know right away that you have a AirTag in the child's shoe. And after the child is kidnapped, you realize that very quickly that the coordinates of your child are suddenly changing dramatically fast. In other words, your child is probably in somebody else's car. Okay, where is this kid going? Let's check on the map. Oh, it's going in a direction that you never even thought of. So you'd immediately call the police, let them know what's going on, and then they would be able to capture the child. But the other thing is that even if they were to take the child to a building and put him in a closet on the 5th floor of a building, the technologies are actually there to determine exactly how far above the ground he is, that you could determine he's actually on the 5th floor. You could even determine which closet he's in, and you could let the police know that too, because I know those technologies are available. There are three-dimensional technologies, and they use atomic clocks to figure out to pinpoint exactly where it is in terms of three-dimensional space. So that's a tremendous advantage. You could have your kids snatched so fast, the thief the kidnapper would be shocked to know how you ever figured that out.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, Robert. Thank you for the tidbit there. I agree with you that there could be an advantage to these things. I don't like the idea of having to AirTag my kid, and I've never done such a thing. But I'm not beyond it either. I'm not criticizing it. But definitely interesting times that we live in where that's a thing. I do use a service where I could, through my kid's phone, I could see how quickly she's driving, as long as she has her phone. But you raise an interesting point with the proliferation of children nowadays. It's like, oh my gosh, what do we think of next? Anyway, big shout out to you, Robert, and everybody listening on WTMA South Carolina. More to come straight ahead. Great calls so far. Enjoying the conversation. More to come straight ahead. We're going to talk about why people get fired in the workplace with a workplace expert. Don't go anywhere.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
And I hate that people are comparing Tucker's firing with Don's firing. That's a false equivalency. False equivalency. And just to put a button on it, Don, yes, said some things that were sexist and I think ageist. He apologized for them and received formal training. And and he spoke to us.
I know him too. We all know him here. Sarah stayed at his house one time. And he loves loves her. She needs to hear that over and over again. But it's fine. But, he has been on the air for a long time fighting bigotry, whereas Tucker has been fomenting bigotry. So there's a big difference.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Of course, that is Sunny Hostin and what's her name? Joy Behar on the View. I was going to call her Joy Reid. And interesting back and forth there on the comparison or juxtaposition of the firing of Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon from their respective jobs as anchors on cable networks. And interestingly, there are people now, there's more stories coming out, people saying that, that coworkers felt bullied or harassed by both of these individuals, or, that their producers were very rough and creating a very toxic culture. And it's interesting that, these are claims that we hear from a lot of people who have interesting or less than desirable experiences where they're mistreated by a colleague or a boss. And again, for the record, I'm not saying that this is what Tucker Carlson did or that what Don Lemon did, but there's definitely more allegations against Mr. Lemon than the two or three things I've read this afternoon about Tucker Carlson, which at this point I don't even know the validity of them, but I do know these things happen in a regular workplace. And Dr. Daren Martin is a workplace culture expert. He's a best-selling author of a book called A Company of Owners, and he's here with us now. Doc, welcome.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
It's my pleasure. I want to get your approach as is it safe to say you're an organizational behaviorist? Do we still use 100%. That term?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
I studied a little bit of that in college, and it was fancy. It was more in depth than I thought, and I think this is a good place to start analyzing. What's your take on what's going on with each of these firings?
Well, first of all, they are very, very different issues. On the one hand, Don has been censored, fired because he made some, comments that were, just reflected a time gone by, and saying that women could reach their expiration date. I mean, that's concerning. And
Sure.
then
can't believe he said that.
yeah, and then Tucker. On a different note, basically accused of, putting forth a false narrative that blah, 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 and was a result of a lawsuit. Who knows how that factored in? Clearly, in terms of the popularity, the influence, I mean, there's no comparison between the two, but they were fired for very different reasons. But it reflects something that is going on in our, culture at large. These are micro events. They're top of mind awareness right now in the media. Everybody's talking about them. But give it 3 weeks and it'll be old news, right? It'll be passé. Compared to the macro story that is the real story, which is what's going on in this country from a company culture standpoint. What is it like for most people to go to work? What is it like from an experiential standpoint for people to go to a place where they spend the bulk of their time? And I would suggest that is abysmal on multiple fronts, and we can get into that. But the statistics don't lie. When you look at the fact that globally, 85%, this is, by the way, data that is proven out year after year from Gallup, from O.C. Tanner, from very reliable sources, 85% of people either hate their jobs or strongly dislike their jobs. Well, clearly, there's a pandemic of a different sort that we've been facing over the last 3 years that is going on, that is having a big impact on a lot of people. Most people are miserable with what work has kind of evolved to and become, or devolved to, I might say. And it's got a trickle down effect, because if you go to work and you hate your job and you come home, how are you going to deal with your family? How are you going to deal with your loved ones? How are you
You're
going to
just
deal
as
with
miserable at home as you are at work.
And you perpetuate that misery. So the fact that both of these firings happened, CNN, Fox, it's kind of an interesting narrative to see the two warring, factions kind of both do a sacrificial lamb, is just reflective of what's going on a much bigger scale.
And that's, I think, the crux of all of this, right, is talking about that, because I think for me personally, I know there's been different jobs I've had, and I think for the most part, it was always a lot that I enjoyed about them, but there were things that, I didn't enjoy, and there were periods or points in time where I was like, oh man, I hate this. Not in radio, honestly, but in other things I've done. And I think more and more people, at least younger and younger people, are leaning away from this idea that I have to work to eat, which is a kind of an old school thinking. I feel now people are like, no, I'd rather starve than do a job I don't like. How does age or generation play a role?
It plays a very significant role. And basically, I believe the breakdown started with the Industrial Revolution, if you will, that prior to that, people they did work that they enjoyed. I'm a carpenter. I make cabinets. I'm a tailor. I make, spectacular clothing. I'm a farmer. I get up at 6 a.m. I drop, into my bed at 10 o'clock at night. But that's what you do when you're a farmer. And I'm passionate about it, and I reap the rewards. When the Industrial Revolution came along, we reduced work to one deal and one deal only. You come to work, you do what I tell you, and I give you money for it. And that's it. That's the deal. Don't expect anything else outside of that. And what we saw was a generation going, that's what we do. And I've heard multiple people, some older generations say things like, well, they get paid. Isn't that enough? Well, there was a generation that, grew up under that, and they did the grind, and they worked to get the gold watch at, their retirement.
Right.
And we had economic downturn, and all of a sudden corporations said, hey, we don't care. You've been with us 45 years. You're out. And oh, by the way, we can't fund the pension fund anymore. You're just flat out of luck. And there were kids growing up in those households that saw that and said, I don't want that deal. I'm not doing that. And they said, no, I'm not going to spend the bulk of my time doing something that is a soul suck. When I speak on stage, I do keynotes for corporations and all sorts of organizations, and I will demonstrate. I'll dance across the stage, with my arms flailing, smile on my face, and then I'll walk, in a very forlorn, zombie-like across the stage, and I'll say which one's Monday and which one's Friday.
Right.
It's a stupid question because it's unanimous which one is Friday and which one is Monday. But that's very much the world we live in. And for where I'm, coming from, that is the thing that has to change. And all the rest of this is just, so much rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic in the meantime.
Doc, I want you to pause right there. I want to remind everybody we're on Dr. Daren Martin. He's the author of A Company of Owners, and we're going to continue talking about why are people so unhappy with work and how do we fix this problem. We're going to get into that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. Plus your calls. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So the CEO of Uber and Starbucks are picking up frontline shifts in their own organizations. This is a trend that they're saying is a no-brainer for driving employee satisfaction. They want employees to be happy and satisfied with their work, and this is being reported by Fortune and Yahoo Finance. And it kind of gives undercover boss vibes, the idea that the CEO of these big companies are there on the front lines. But it makes sense when you're trying to understand why an employee might be satisfied or dissatisfied, kind of like we just talked about. And our guest is Dr. Daren Martin. He's a workplace culture expert, best-selling author of the book, A Company of Owners. And Dr. Daren Martin, we were talking about how there was a generation of kids that watched their dad work for, 2 decades or 3 decades at the same company to get the gold watch, to get a pat on the back and maybe a pension, maybe not. And how they said, you know what, I'm not signing up for that. I'm not going to give my whole life for nothing. Meanwhile, there were people happy to do it. Yet now people are, back a few years back, they were calling them scanners, people that had a job every 3 years or every 5 years. I think now they're called normal, right? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. What's the latest?
Well, we have definitely morphed into a gig economy when the current worker felt like, hey, the company's not loyal to me. Well, I don't have to demonstrate loyalty to the company. And so everybody's looking for the bigger, better deal, right? And they'll go wherever they're going to get the most pay, the best benefits, et cetera. And it's not like it used to be, where when you started with the company, you expected to stay there a long time. I talked to a law firm, this was 7-8 years ago, and they were bemoaning the fact that the old model wasn't working, because you come to work for a law firm, you grind it out for 30 years, 40 years, you make partner, and then you reap the benefits, and then you get all the goodies. And they said people were coming to work, they get their law degree, they come to work, and 2 years later they're quitting. And they said not to go to another law firm. They were starting a flower shop or doing something that wasn't, sitting in the library, 14 hours a day, just poring over all sorts of stuff. So I think we have a different expectation these days of how we want to spend the bulk of our time. And it's interesting times. I mean, we're going through a massive transition that is going to prove itself out one way or the other. Not to mention the fact that we're living in the bold new world when you start looking at AI and all the noise and reality about things like ChatGPT. The rote work is going away. Seth Godin said a long time ago that if you go to work and somebody tells you what to do and you do it, those jobs are going away. So we're living in a cataclysmic shift in time. Everything we do is different today. The way we date, the way we order food, the way we travel, the way we search information. I'm assuming with you, Rich, but I grew up without a computer, without a cell phone, and all of that stuff. So we're living in this very interesting generation. But everything else has changed, but what hasn't changed is work. We're still punching your clock. We're still, you got managers still watching for who shows up first and leaves last. And even though we're able to be, 1,000 times more productive with all the tools that we have. So it's time for what I call an evolution at work, where we need to change the paradigm and start to rethink this thing that we have created and put it in a much more palpable kind of scenario. Work, there's no question, work invaded home a long time ago. 50% of people expect to be working on vacation at some point. People respond to emails on Saturday night or Sunday. But if you want to go to your kid's soccer game at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, people go, what? This is a work day. You can't do that, right? So I expect you to respond to the email while you're on vacation, but no, you can't go to that. This has to shift.
How do we fix it?
Well, we've got to change, as I said, the paradigm. We've got to change our mindset. I always tell people, for me personally, for my business and what I do, and I work for myself. So, as I told my wife when I said, you quit your job, come, let's build this, empire. I said, you're going to be working a little bit all of the time. That's just the reality. So on a Tuesday afternoon, we may be at the movie theater going to the movies, but I may be up at 2 a.m. writing a new book or doing something else. And we've got to get a much more fluid sense of work. Stanford showed years ago, pandemic that people who work from home, who are in positions where they're able to do that.
I think we lost Dr. Martin. Bad connection. But, what he was saying reminds me of an old saying where people say, you know what, I got tired of working a 9-to-5 job, so I started my own business. Now I work 24 hours a day. and that is the reality of it. But it gives mind to another old adage where they say you find work that you love, a job you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that's true. And I think that's why I enjoy my job as much as I do. That and the great guests and, of course, the amazing listeners we have. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get Dr. Daren Martin back on, but check out his book. And, he's back, so I can thank him because we're about to hit the break anyway. Dr. Daren Martin, I just wanted to remind everybody to get a copy or 2 copies of your book, A Company of Owners. And let everybody know your website in case they want to check out the work that you're doing. Oh, we lost him again. The website, I'm being told, is DarenMartin.com. Check out the website, DarenMartin.com. The deep state has gotten to his phone, but it hasn't gotten to this show, so we're coming back to you and your calls. And Open Phone America is coming up in the next segment.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez with an S here. Sorry, I was a little off mic there for a second. And we're going to be kicking off Open Phone America at the top of the hour in the next segment, but we're going to get to a couple of calls right now. The number, of course, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Ann. She's in Grass Valley, California on KNCO. Ann, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good. I heard you say last night that you had a while ago, you didn't say how long ago, you suffered from restless leg syndrome.
Well, actually, it's I shake my leg incessantly, but it's the result of my ADHD.
Okay, because I got a medication for it, because I couldn't get anything that would help. And so I did get something you could just write down in case it comes back.
What's that?
Mirapex, Mirapex, and it worked like a miracle. I wish someone would have told me about it for years ago. I'm a nurse, and so I wouldn't recommend something.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I mean, I've kind of gotten used to just, as long as I'm not driving, I just shake my leg. It's like it just doesn't end. It's amazing. But very interesting to know. Now, I want to pick your brain on a couple of things, just with respect to the stuff we were talking about. Do you love your job, Ann?
I'm retired, but I did love it when I did it. I was a labor delivery nurse for 35 years.
Oh, how cool is that? That's got to be cool.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about why, how certain people, they got into a career field expecting to be in that career field and then, kind of fell out of love with it. And how that, there's a lot of people today that aren't retired that are in that position. And I was just really curious to know. But thank you for the tip on the Mirapex and for answering my question. Phil in Pittsburgh, we're going to get to you next. Don't go anywhere. And thank you. Big shout out to everybody in California on KNCO. Open Phone America is coming up right now. 833-4-VALDEZ. We're taking your calls. 833-482-5337. It's America at Night. We're doing Open Phone America, and I can't wait to get started. So don't go anywhere and don't move a muscle.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. You're welcome to chime in that way. Of course, you can also join our late live national late night town hall forum. The phone number is 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Of course, those are the musical stylings of Harry Belafonte, a liberal activist and chart-topping calypso singer who passed away. He lamentably passed away of congestive heart failure. I loved listening to the Tally Man, Tally Me Banana. This was, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know that he was even ill. But rest in peace, Harry Belafonte. I totally disagreed with his politics, but always enjoyed the music. And I honestly always enjoyed hearing his spirited debates as well. That's Harry Belafonte, everybody. Now, Joe Biden, Joe El Baboso Biden, he has launched his initiative known as Biden 2024. We don't even know who the running mate is going to be. I mean, one would suppose that it's going to be Kamala Harris, right? Oh, we would think so. But it seems like there's a lot of consideration bringing a number of top Democrats into the loop here. And some folks are spilling the beans, telling Fox News that Julie Rodriguez, who currently serves as a senior advisor to the president and director of intergovernmental affairs at the White House, is expected to be named his campaign manager. Other sources told Fox News that Quentin Fulks is the former campaign manager for Senator Raphael Warnock, and he's expected to be named deputy campaign manager. I'll tell you, if I was a Democrat running for office, I would get that guy. I never thought Warnock was going to win. And there he is, after all the stuff that he said and all the drama he had and all the videos that were released about him prior to his election. And he still won. This guy had a solid team behind him, whether you agree with him or not. A number of top Democrats are trying to get into the campaign, according to this article I'm looking at. And we'll see how it goes. But that's the story with, Joe Biden, Joe El Baboso Biden, and his reelection. Now, what's interesting here is that while people are vying to become part of the Biden campaign, the rest of the people, we the people, we're like, nah, I'm good. I'm really not that interested in Joe Biden. But Joe doesn't care. He says he's going to finish the job. I'm going to finish the job I started. And we got a little clip of Joe that we'll play in a moment. But interestingly, despite his announcement, which was released via a video that he put out, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, she fumbles the question when they ask her, will President Biden serve a full second term? Her response, well, that's something for him to decide. How do you even admit to that, saying that that's what's going on? But that is exactly what happened. The answer is, well, we'll see. With any luck, maybe he'll stick around for the full term. I don't know. Doesn't sound good to me. But we are going to go to your calls because I know there's a couple of you holding. I know Phil in Pittsburgh has been holding on since before. We were going to talk about the reason that people hate their jobs. And I think it's part of that has to do with the reason we hate inflation. People aren't making as money as they'd like to, and they're forced to work more hours and have more jobs and do X, Y, and Z because of the challenges in the economy. And again, I don't think anybody takes on what am I trying to say here? I don't think people hate work per se because of Biden. I just think that the economic situation that they're in right now because of Biden makes things that much harder, where, what they used to do for work and having an income isn't quite cutting it like it used to, if that makes sense. Let's go to Phil. He's in Pittsburgh on KDKA. Phil, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead. Hey.
How you doing, Rich?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think a big reason why you were saying like 85% of people hate their jobs or something like that. I think a big reason that doesn't get talked about or get any news coverage is because there's a lot of workplaces that are abusive and toxic, and they allow their managers and some of their employees to engage in workplace bullying. And I would say that's a big reason why a lot of companies can't find people and why people quit their jobs.
You know, Phil, that's exactly what we were talking about. That's how we started that conversation, was people saying that Don Lemon had made, and others were claiming similar about Carlson. But principally, it was Don Lemon who on air attacked Nikki Haley, saying she was past her prime, who on air had back and forth spats with his co-hosts, and who also on air while he was at work told Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for president, that he wasn't black enough to answer, to even debate the point that they were discussing. So, yeah, I think these types of toxic environments definitely contribute to that, and that was how we launched that conversation. Now, tell me a little bit about the toxicity of the workplaces that you're referencing.
Like yelling at employees in front of customers, managers that aren't trustworthy. They throw you under the bus and make you look bad every chance they get, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if there's a quick fix or an easy answer to that stuff, but you're right. And I actually just saw it. I went to an auto parts store to pick up something for my old truck. And while I was there, the boss looked like he was a very competent and effective manager at this store. However, he was training a new guy, and I guess his way of training was ridicule, right? And he basically was like, hey, the customer's gone. You don't have to do that anymore. Like, hello, and I was there, and there was certainly a line of people behind me. And I thought, you know what, that's not going to bring out the best in that guy. If anything, if it were me, I'd probably take that the wrong way and think, instead of as a teachable and learning moment, I would probably feel slighted by that, and who knows how I'd respond. But it wouldn't be positive, because I think it wasn't positive, right? It was negative, and it brings out negative responses in people. So I think you're on to something, Phil. If you had it your way, how do you fix the problem? I think that it's all about how you talk to people. Managers have to realize that they're spending hours and hours with the people under them. And, I think that they need to focus more on being humane with people and, just making it more of a comfortable work environment where people can be themselves and feel like they want to work hard.
It sounds like the old golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Just have respect for everybody. Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. Excellent call. We're going to get to the rest of your calls, thoughts, and comments straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. Give us a call, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Republicans already attacking Kamala Harris. They think that's going to be an issue. I understand he's 80 years old, but people always overthink this stuff. They always overthink this stuff. I've never met one person in my life that voted for a presidential candidate because of the vice president. It just doesn't happen. Maybe it'll help bring a state over once in a while, but in this case,
almost never.
Yeah, but in this case, attacks against Kamala Harris leaves people going, yeah, whatever.
It's another one of those things that is done primarily to whip up more frenzy among the Republican base because they don't like her because guess what? She's a black woman.
She's a black woman.
And they're not into that.
Is it the fact that she's a black woman that Republicans don't like, or the fact that she's not a smart woman? I'm going to go with the latter. Anyway, let us continue with your calls. Let's go to Steve. He's in Cleveland, Ohio, WEOL. Steve, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
It is easy listening of the evening, Rich. How are you?
My man.
Yesterday I was talking about ADD, and I forgot to tell you something. If you really think about it, ADD's got a couple definitions, but I came up with the first one because I had a problem one night, and but it's attention deficit dad, which leads to a lot of other ones. Because all dads have attention problems when it comes to kids. It's like, yeah, we'll take care of it later.
I misheard you. Got you right. You're like, hey, what'd you say? That's so true. Anyway, tell me what you think about Biden and his re-election bid.
Well, I think ADD also stands for Attention Deficit Democrat.
Oh, boy.
When you put a scarecrow out front and you make him the main focus, you never look at the Wizard of Oz. Don't pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. And we're going to give you, a road full of gold. And actually, money that used to be backed by gold, now it's just paper. But when you look at what Biden's doing, he has to be the front runner out there just to stick out there. Because this has to be Obama's third term. And if he can last long enough between now and, Article 25, whatever the heck it is, or, impeach him or whatever, because if you impeach his son who's living in the White House because you don't want to pay, child support or whatever this fool stuff is, and, the other guy that used to build buildings and put his name at the top of golf courses, and these people... This country is either that stupid, because ESP actually can stand for extraordinary stupid people.
Yeah, we're going to run out of time, Steve. Let's get to your bottom line here.
Biden ain't going to run. He's going to be gone in 6 months. Michelle Obama, I believe, is going to be surprise front runner. And they have a surprise somewhere, they think. But I don't know who that one is. But Biden is not going to finish he can't finish his term unless they keep giving him B12 shots. But
we'll see what happens. I don't know. Yep, go ahead.
He's got all the people in the world behind him, but he ain't going to run.
All right, Steve, thanks. Yeah, I don't know how that ends up. I personally don't think Michelle Obama will ever run for president. I think she'd lose a ton of money in doing so. They make a lot of money by not being in the White House anymore, and a run for the White House would short-term add to their coffers, for campaign donations and stuff, but long-term, it would put a lot of scrutiny on them, and they don't want anybody scrutinizing their cash. So I doubt that's going to happen. But let's see, man. Stranger things have happened, I guess. Steve, big shout out to you and everybody listening in Cleveland on WEOL. Let's continue. Let's go to Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Sarah, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. I got a story I'll try to make quick about toxic work environment. In the really early 90s, my mom was working, I won't name the hospital, but you'd recognize it, prestigious hospital in Manhattan. There was a perverted security guard, and she used to complain he'd make inappropriate comments and try to lift up her dress.
Was it Joe Biden?
No, it wasn't Joe Biden.
Oh, okay.
No, no, it wasn't Joe Biden. But anyway, make a long story short, she tried to avoid him and stuff. One day he got in the elevator with her and grabbed her and tried to kiss her, and she punched him. And he told her, I'll have your job, because she was white, he was black, and he had a brother who was real big in the hospital union. And he told her that, I'm going to have your job. So she left work, made a police report telling what she did and why she did it. And the next day she come into work, they were ready to fire her because he claimed that he got in the elevator with her and she just called him a certain racial epithet and then punched him for no reason. And she said, you do that, I'll sue you, and I'll win, because this is what happened, and why didn't he make a police report, Anyway, make a long story short, she kept her job, but she had to take racial sensitivity classes. Real travesty of justice. It was awful.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Talk
a bad
about
deal. So.
Toxic workplace, right?
Yeah, and just replacing one type of racism with another. It's just really sad. It shouldn't have happened, and it's sad. I mean, it's just a bad
sad.
deal.
Now, let me ask you this. Going back to Biden, what are your thoughts on Biden's run? He's announced. We've heard the video. What do you think? Do you think he's got a shot? Do you think he sticks around? Do you think it's temporary?
I think it's. Well, I honestly think it's kind of scary that they're running such a lame duck because it tells me that it almost gives credence that we'll have a fixed election. I just can't believe them running such a lackluster candidate and expecting him to win unless they have something up their sleeve. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, well, I don't even think Democrats are enthused, so I don't know if they have anything up their sleeves. I think that's just Biden saying, I don't want to leave. I'm not going anywhere. But thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Let us continue. Let's go to Doc in Wilmington, Delaware. WDEL, go right ahead.
Thanks for taking the call, Rich. Thanks for a great show tonight, as always. Rich, couple points. Number one, I've got a comment on. It was a fantastic show with Jimmy last night. I love hearing from Jimmy. It was a fantastic hour with him last night in the show, but I have to make a couple of points in rejoinder to his comments. They're just totally factually false. Obama wasn't put in office by Frank Marshall, the communist, who was one of his mentors in his youth. Supposedly, that cannot be proven. That's a rumor on the right. He was put in office by George Soros. That's in all the media, all over the place, in all the alternative media, left and right wing. Soros put him in. He was groomed by Soros and the bigwigs on Wall Street to be an alternative candidate if somebody else didn't come in there. And what did he do when he got into power? Bailed out all the Wall Street banks. That's my first point. My second point is, domestically, I do not think at all, in my heart of hearts, that either Joe Biden nor Donald Trump will be their representative party's standard bearers in the 2024 election, because America is tired of octogenarian candidates. Lastly, Jimmy made a factual error historically in his talk last night. Great hour, but factual error. He
should have called last night. He's not even here to defend himself. But go ahead.
Well, I couldn't get in last night. They wouldn't let me get in. That's fact. Okay, I tried to get in, but I couldn't get in. And Jimmy made the statement the Chavarin was a communist. He wasn't a communist. He was put in power by the CIA. Mohammed Mossadegh was the
No, I remember what Jimmy said there. He said the Shah of Iran was pro-Western, so meaning an American ally.
I thought he said he was communist.
No, he was saying that Iran is part of the overall communist movement, but there was a Shah, that the Shah of Iran was an American ally who was taken out, and now that they're part of the overall, according to what he was positing, the overall grand scheme of this new axis of evil, with Iran, China, Russia, all being part of the communist new wave. Anyway, thank you, Doc. I appreciate the call. Thank you for your words of wisdom and your insight. We will continue with your calls and more straight ahead. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. It's America at Night, and this is Open Phone America. Make sure you give us a call.
That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Our economic plan is working. We now have to finish the job, but there's more to do. And you're leading the way. Shovels in the ground, cranes in the air, factories opening, all those jobs, meaning we created. The IBW jobs, ironworkers, Boilermakers, Teamsters, laborers, bricklayers, masons, plumbers and pipe fitters, painters, plasterers, roofers, operating engineers, steel and metal workers. My economic plan, as McGarvey said, is blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America, and that's what we're doing, rebuilding America.
Rebuilding America is what Joe Biden's doing. He's got hairy legs. Listen, I don't know if Joe Biden's rebuilding America. He's definitely reshaping America. I wouldn't call it rebuilding America. But that's where we are. Now, just a couple of quick headlines I wanted to go over with you because there's a bunch of good stuff out there. the rapper Ricky Rose, he's offering Don Lemon a job at one of the Wingstop restaurants that he owns. And he reached out to 57-year-old former news anchor Don Lemon and told him that he would offer him a job. I don't know that Mr. Lemon has responded as of yet, but that is, in fact, the report coming out of the New York Post. Also, we'll get to this in a little bit, but there's something called SatanCon. It's a Satan convention hosted by the Satanic Temple, and it's coming to Boston. It's set to be the largest satanic gathering in history. 2023 SatanCon. Yep, that's a real thing. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But I want to continue with your calls. Let us go to Rich in Quincy, Illinois on WTAD. Rich, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes,
it was
sir.
Sad news to hear this morning about Harry Belafonte, 96 years old. But I recall a story that Larry King told years ago. Larry King was working as a DJ somewhere down in South Florida. And you've heard of the term
Miami,
radio
Florida,
romance.
WIOD.
Oh, okay. All right. So Larry got himself caught up in this radio romance with an older woman who happened to live just about a block away from the station. So one night, Larry put on Harry Belafonte live at Carnegie Hall, bolted out of the station, and went to the woman's place. About 15 to 20 minutes into the album cut, the record starts skipping. So Larry grabs his threads and bolts back to the radio station, only to find the station manager standing inside the door waiting for him.
Uh-oh. Not good. Not good, Larry.
Not good, Larry, but boy, what an icon, that's for sure. Both of them.
Absolutely.
Both, Larry and Harry, they're going to be missed.
Yeah, and an amazing story at that. And, you know, what's funny is the program director back then was, I think it was a guy named Kevin Delaney, who's now vice president of programming and is standing in the doorway looking at me, still here at Westwood One. So that's pretty funny, and it's cool to work with somebody who worked with Larry and with Bohannon and has so much institutional memory to lend to the program. So big shout out to Kevin Delaney, by the way, and Bart Tessler and everybody else who was a part of that team. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that great piece of history, excellent tidbit. Let us continue here. Oh, here we go. Let's go to Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Check in with our buddy Jerome. Jerome, go right ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Buenas noches.
Yeah, buenos dias.
That too.
Buenos dias, buenas noches. Hey, but look, let me tell you something about Kamala Harris. You know what my number one problem with her, my number one pet peeve with her? She called Joe Biden a racist, and now she's working for him. If you're a racist, there's no way in hell I'm working for you, okay?
Yeah,
no
good
way.
point.
And now she's like his number one fan. Oh, Joe Biden. But she is so two-faced, and she's a sellout. I can't stand her, okay? I never forgot her saying that about him. And I'm like, why are you working for someone that you despise? I mean, you got to despise somebody to call them something like that, okay?
You know, Jerome, what's interesting is I think that was one of her best performances in any of the debates was when she made those comments.
Yeah, yeah. But, hey, the Republicans, they have nothing. Look, now you got
what does that mean? The Democrats have something? They've got Harris and Biden.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that there's this overwhelming love for Biden. But the Republicans have nothing. Now you got Larry Elder, the guy who's married to an ex-prostitute. Oh, that would be really good to have her in the White House as the first lady, huh? Was she going to be turning tricks in the White House now?
Who are you talking about?
Come on. Larry Elder, another clown. You don't know who
Larry Elder
is
a great radio host, but I want to go back to who's this person you're talking about that's ex-prostitute?
Larry Elder, his current wife is an ex-call girl. What is it, prostitute, call girl, madam, whatever?
I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that, but I do know. I will. I'm happy to look it up. But I'll tell you this. I think when you say that, the Republicans have nothing, I mean, I think whether you like Trump or not, I think Trump is a formidable candidate. Trump has proven that he can win an election. Some will argue he's proven he can lose an election. So he's got a 50 shot, right? 50-50 shot either way. And I think, if I was running against Donald Trump, I wouldn't just take it as a joke. I wouldn't just say, they've got nothing. I think Trump brings a lot to the table. The guy's incredible at raising money. He's incredible at messaging. He's one of the few politicians I've seen that's been able to be maligned by the press. And again, whether you think he's guilty of sin and should be lock him up and throw away the key or not, he's able to turn that around and flip it up in a way where it's benefited his campaign, even when it was meant to hurt his campaign. So I think he's astute when it comes to certain things with the media, with politics, with lots of things, quite frankly. So I wouldn't just write off Donald Trump, Jerome.
The Republican Party is a bunch of El Stupido. You know what that means, right? El Stupido.
Listen,
I told you I know a little bit of Spanish, all right?
Yeah, yep. Well, you're not. I don't think you're using it right. I mean, you're describing Democrats there. But listen, I thank you for the call. I appreciate it. We'll see what happens. I'm not making any predictions yet. But big shout out to you, Jerome. Thanks for the call. Always love a dissenting opinion, and got a lot of those on Facebook. Listen to this one from Robert Jackson with no photo, so I don't even know if he's real. But he says, every person in America is not conservative nor have conservative viewpoints. Stay in the middle of the road. Conservative thinking today is a bit to the extreme. I only listen to you because I live in a small town environment with not very many AM listening opportunities. So pay attention. The country may be changing. Well, Robert Jackson, thank you for listening because there's no one else to listen to. I tend to think that if I don't like a program, I find something else to do, like read a book, watch TV, you name it. There's so many things that we could do other than listen to radio programs we don't like. I happen to have conservative values, principles, and beliefs. And those are what I'll be talking about while I'm talking on the radio. And I thank you for your opinion and for having the courage and taking the time to chime in on the Facebook page at Rich Valdez with an S, by the way. Thank you very much, Robert Jackson. And there were others, that go in there to tell me things that are very nice. Sarah Halliburton Harris, big shout out to you. Says she loves the show. Thank you very much. So as those comments come in, I'll be giving you a little bit of update here and there. But we have more calls remaining and more to talk about. So don't go anywhere. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we got another Facebook comment from a Hubert Miller. Hubert Miller, another user with no photo, just that little gray avatar with no picture. And he says, you have many wonderful, intelligent, and informative guests on your show, so I wonder why you would waste your time like you did last night with Joe Sixpack talking about communism. That's insulting, sir. But anyway, what we are facing is a special new blend, mostly with nationalism in the mix. To hear Jimmy fulminate about his theories and conspiracies and accusations is depressing and a definite tune-out signal. I also doubt he reads any of the Chinese papers. Then he goes on to just trash Jimmy and insult his intelligence, and I'm not going to get into that. But I will say again, Hubert Miller, where were you last night when we had Jimmy on for 2 segments, 30 minutes straight? It would have been great to hear from you, Hubert Miller. But thank you for your comment. I will put the little laughy face because I think that's kind of funny. But outstanding job, sir. Outstanding job. Hubert Miller, everybody. Anonymous gray face Facebook dissenter. Anyway, we'll get to the rest of your calls. Let's see. Where did I want to go? Let's see who's been holding the longest. We've got... what town is that? Yeah, we've got Justin in Manchester, New Hampshire, WUVR. Go right ahead.
Rich, thank you for taking my call. It's always such a pleasure and honor to speak with you, Rich.
Thank you, sir.
I was gonna say,
Likewise.
You're welcome. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I love your sense of humor too, Rich. It really livens up the show. I love it. And yeah, you're welcome. That was a great tribute to Harry Belafonte. I tell you, every time I hear the song that you played, I believe it's called the Banana Boat song. I always think of the movie Beetlejuice, one of my childhood movies.
Yeah, right, with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think Lori Lightfoot was his stunt double in that film.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think you're right.
It's Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can definitely see the resemblance. I agree with you. I can't help it. I always think of that movie. But as far as Joe Biden goes, Rich, in my opinion, that man belongs in a nursing home. He does not belong running the most powerful nation and the greatest nation that's ever been on the face of the earth. He's the definition of incompetent. And I agree with Jerome too. He is a straight up racist, no doubt about it. I don't think he has a chance of getting the nomination this time. I really don't. And as far as the Republican side, I hope not either. I mean, for the sake of our nation, I hope not either. Otherwise, we're in serious trouble. And as far as the Republican side goes, I don't think Donald Trump is going to have any problem getting the nomination. I think he's absolutely going to get the Republican nomination, and I really hope he does. He is a great man, and he saved our country once, and I believe he can do it again. I really do. So yeah, I'm with you, Rich, all the way, brother.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it, and I think you're right. I think Trump is going to surprise a lot of people in this go round. Guy's got a lot of energy, and when I was a kid, I was a fan of Donald Trump's because he was like a local celebrity. There was Trump Village in Brooklyn, and they were always a very well known, popular socialite family, real estate family. But I remember, I guess it was the late '80s when he got involved with Atlantic City. And then lost a bunch of money out there. And I remember he gave a quote, I think it was to the New York Post or maybe the Daily News. And the quote was, if you think becoming a billionaire is tough, try doing it twice, right? Because there was bankruptcy in between. And I remember thinking, wow, I love that quote. This guy's terrific, and again, everybody loved Trump back then. That nobody thought he was running for president. He was just a cool New Yorker. And I think he has that same experience now. You think becoming president was hard once? Just watch him do it twice. And I really do believe that, especially having faced what he faced in the last go-round. There was a shakeup in his campaign with his campaign manager having some illness and stepping aside. Just a lot went on. And again, I'm not blaming anybody for anything, but I am saying it was an interesting time. And I think he's prepared for that and more this go-round. Justin, big shout-out to you and everybody in Manchester, New Hampshire. My buddy Kev lives out there. I enjoy Manchester, New Hampshire. Great shooting ranges out there as well. Anyway, let us continue. Let's go to John in El Paso, Texas on KOBE. Go right ahead.
Wonderful show tonight, Rich. And
thank you, sir.
I don't think we should underestimate the Democratic Party and the power they have.
I agree.
They are pouring money that's going to be developing the Southwest to a tremendous degree. I mean, they're pouring money in here, and we're not. This is just booming here. Everything's booming. They're building all these new apartments and high-dollar apartments, and there's all kinds of programs where the federal money is coming into this state, and this area, the Southwest. It's pouring in, and it's actually going to be a boom here, I think. And there's going to be a new there's going to be a new positioning in the White House, because someone is coming in, drifting into that position there in the White House, and he actually has tremendous influence around the world, different countries, and he knows a lot of important people, and he can swing deals. And so what Biden is going to do is get reelected and sit back, and things will run as they are. They're accomplishing what they want to do, and he's going to sit back, and his son, who's been pulling the strings for quite a while now, behind a cloud, and he's the one it's going to start the Biden dynasty.
Well, John, I don't know that that's going to be the case. Interesting theory for sure. And I enjoyed you walking me through it because it was kind of funny. But from what I've seen of Hunter Biden, I don't think he's calling the shots on anything. I really think that, and I think your initial statement was spot on. We should not underestimate the Democrats, in particular Joe Biden. I call him Joe El Baboso Biden because he says these silly things, and I do believe he should be in a nursing home. But at the same time, he's like that tough grandpa, like my dad was in many ways. My dad might not have known which house was his on the block. He may not have remembered all of our names, but he remembered how to throw a right hook. He remembered how to do a lot of those things, muscle memory from being in the street. And I think that's Joe Biden. He's got a lot of muscle memory when it comes to being a corrupt politician. He just knows how to do it. He could do it in his sleep. And I think Hunter is his bagman. Hunter is doing his bidding, not the other way around, but we shall see. Anyway, your calls and more are coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're hitting the phones. Let's go to Lee in Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Go right ahead, Lee.
I was your earlier guest who was talking about how these people go into a job and they feel like it's a dead-end thing. Well, they probably didn't grow up on a farm where you had to eat supper together every night, and everyone at the table had the opportunity to ask questions and to listen and observe the others as they give you suggestions on how to deal when somebody bullies you at school, or how do I interact with this teacher who spells sugar, S-U-G-E-R, that kind of thing. And they, we didn't have those gadgets to talk back and forth to each other without anybody else hearing it and seeing it, the way they do today, and sit next to each other yakking on the thing with nobody else to hear or see or learn from it.
Lee, I think you're 100% right here. I think the lack of communication that and vis-a-vis ability to resolve conflict or deal with people that may be abrasive goes away when you grow up in these smaller families, only child. It's a new world. And, imagine being an only child and you grew up with a tablet in your hand. Oh, boy, good luck in the workplace when somebody gets under your feathers a little bit, right? Anyway, thank you for all of your calls. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time, take care, good night, and God bless. I am Rich Valdez. This was America at Night, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow.